So let's have a little chat, shall we? This is your host, The Occult View, and hopefully I can get through this video without being interrupted. But let's have a little chat, a little chatty chat. I've been going back in time to the 1980s, and I've been re examining the original series Dynasty, not to be confused with that awful remake and that awful reboot that they did a few years ago, and thankfully that shit was canceled. The shit was so bad I had to watch it, but the shit was awful. No, I'm referring to the original series Dynasty that came on and premiered back in the early 80s, I believe 1981 if I'm not mistaken. And I know a lot of people are not going to be interested in this, especially younger people that watch me, because most of you all were not even a gleam in your mommy and daddy's eye at that time, okay? I was pretty young myself back then during that time. But there was a lot of hidden occultism in Dynasty. When I really look at everything that took place in Dynasty, the storylines, there was a lot of hidden occultism, and there was a lot of, how can I say it, futuristic foretelling in Dynasty. Dynasty foretold what was going to happen in the world and specifically in the United States as it pertained to the government, politics, and business. You know? But the thing that I really wanted to talk about was a particular character in Dynasty. Her name was Claudia Blaisdel. And Claudia was not a Carrington. You know, the show was about the Carringtons and the Colbys. They were ultra rich people. Claudia became a Carrington by accident. Okay? And then, of course, we had the fabulous Diane Carroll who played Dominique Devereaux, honey. Okay? She was Dominique Devereaux. She was a Carrington. Okay? But anyway, Claudia Blaisdel, she was a regular person. She was married to a man named Matthew, and she had a daughter named Lindsay. Matthew and Lindsay ended up being killed off the show, and Claudia began to have a lot of mental problems, surrounding the sudden death of her daughter and her husband, but mainly her daughter, because Matthew, come to find out, that motherfucker wasn't dead, but that's another story. But the reason I want to talk about Claudia Blaisdel is because I feel like Claudia Blaisdel is a symbol for a pure-hearted person. She was a symbol for a pure spirit. Because to be totally honest with you, if we really want to look at things, the Carringtons wasn't shit. Wasn't none of them motherfuckers shit. Wasn't none of them motherfuckers shit. Okay? Blake wasn't shit. Okay? His kids weren't shit. They were users and manipulators, including Fallon. Fallon wasn't shit. Amanda wasn't shit. Steven wasn't shit. And Adam wasn't shit either. Okay? And the reason that I said that I say that they wasn't shit is because they weren't. If you look at the things that their characters did, you know what I'm saying? For example, Steven was supposed to be a gay man. And he was openly gay, I'll give him that much. But he used and manipulated women to basically get what he wanted. His father did not approve, Blake Carrington did not approve of his homosexual lifestyle. Okay? And in order to get his father's approval, he has sex with Sammy Jo, Crystal's niece, Blake Carrington's wife's niece, played by Heather Locklear. Okay? He gets her pregnant, and they have a child together named Danny. Stephen reverts back to being gay, but his father will not accept him. So, and his father was threatening to take Danny away from him, his father, Blake, because Blake did not like homosexuals. Blake was a homophobe. So, to make a long story short, Stephen married Claudia Blaisdel in order to keep his son. And that would have been okay. But Stephen started having sex with Claudia. He started loving up on her. But all along, he was suppressing his homosexual nature. And what ended up happening, ultimately, he ended up going back to messing with men. And Claudia ended up getting hurt. And Claudia was also prior in a mental institution. Like I said, she was dealing with some mental issues of her own because she lost her daughter and she lost her husband, Matthew Blaisdell. Okay? So Claudia, being the kind person that she is, she liked Stephen. She sacrificed herself for Stephen, even though she knew he had had messed with men and he was openly gay at one point. The next thing you know, we're seeing scenes with Stephen and Claudia fucking. Like, where they do that at? Where they do that at? But then eventually Stephen goes back to men. Claudia begins to feel isolated. She begins to feel unappreciated. And she begins to feel used and lonely. Then she turns to Adam Carrington, Stephen's, I'm not going to call him a psychopath, but let's just say sociopathic brother. She turns to him. That marriage failed too. I don't remember all of the details as to why the marriage failed, but it failed. So after that, Claudia began to really see the Carringtons for what they really were. You feel what I'm saying? And the Colbys. She began to see them for what they really were. She began to see, and she had that aha moment or that epiphany that they used her, abused her, and then threw her to the side. They basically threw her away like she was trash. And Claudia, throughout the series, she was always there for them. She was always a support system for the Carringtons. At one point, it was mutually exchanged. But then after her marriage to Adam Carrington, her third husband, after her marriage to Adam, in her quest to find love and in her quest to find that wholeness again, which you will never find in this life, but that's another story. But in her quest to find that wholeness again, she turns to Adam Carrington, and that marriage disintegrated as well. So at some point, she found out that there was an oil well or some property that had some oil on it that her husband, Matthew Blaisdel, her ex-husband, deceased husband, well, he wasn't deceased, but she didn't know that Blake Carrington had left to him. So rightfully, it would go to Claudia because she was his wife. And Blake would not give her that oil well or pay her for it or let her produce anything on it. He basically blackballed her and would not hear anything she had to say. He started treating her very badly, as with the other Carringtons, they started treating Claudia very, very badly, right? And this was after she and Adam started having problems in their marriage. So, to make a long story short, Claudia ended up accidentally killing herself in a fire. Okay? She started a fire at La Mirage, the hotel that the Carringtons owned, and that's another and that's another thing. Claudia used to run the hotel after Fallon had died, or they thought Fallon had died. But at some point, Blake removed her and told her, "We don't need you anymore." So the Carringtons, they started acting funny towards her. They started dissing her and just basically, like I said, throwing her away. Claudia was kind. She had some problems, but she was kind. She was supportive. And she had a pure heart. And when she began to wake up and see how the Carringtons were treating her, that is when they started turning against her. And that's because she ate off of the tree of knowledge. See, at first, she was submissive Eve. Let's get into a little occultism. At first, Claudia was the submissive Eve to her Adam. Okay? But then once she ate off of the tree of knowledge, she became Lilith. And she was like, hold up. Hold up. I've been supporting you motherfuckers. I've been helping you. I've been kind to you. I sacrificed my body, my mind to a gay man who never really even loved me. He never gave me a baby. Stephen never gave Claudia a baby when they were married. And in case you're getting confused, Stephen and Adam were brothers. See, the story with Claudia is about Lilith and Eve. You see, Eve became Lilith when she ate off of the tree of knowledge. Claudia became Lilith. She was Eve. See, she was Eve. She married Adam, and Adam tried to control her and use her too, and then she turned into Lilith. And then when she turned into Lilith, they killed her off the show. All symbolic. The point that I'm making is this. A lot of us have been Claudia Blaisdel. A lot of us. Whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, but mainly women. Because Claudia sacrificed everything. She married a gay man that never really loved her. He was still into men. She sacrificed her time, her energy, and all for what? To be rejected and discarded and thrown away by the Carringtons in the end. And ultimately, that led to her death because she was in her hotel room lighting candles, doing candle magic. She was doing some candle magic. In her hotel room. She was doing that candle magic, and one of the candles fell over, and her room caught a fire, and it was so fast, she couldn't get out. She was trapped in that room. It was so, so sad what happened to her. But there was a symbolic message behind that. And it was really talking about how a lot of women sacrificed themselves. They sacrificed their bodies. They sacrificed their minds for people or men who ain't shit. And then in the end, they end up with nothing. So the point that I'm making is this. I said all that to say this. A lot of us have been Claudia Blaisdel. And we have sacrificed for people. We have done things for people. We have loved people. And we didn't get anything in return. But when we begin to wake up, and when we begin to question these people, when we begin to question who they really are, or when we begin to see who they really are, then they throw us away. You see what I'm saying? When you start to peep who people really the fuck are, and they know that you can see them, they throw you away. Because they don't want you to know who they really are. It can be family, it can be lovers, it can be children, it can be friends, associates, it can be anybody. That's why it's important to know who you are. That's why I said haters can't motivate you. I hate that term, haters are my motivators. No, you don't motivate me. Why the fuck would a hater motivate me? They can't motivate me to do shit. Because out of all of those people in that circle of the Carringtons and the Colbys, I'm going to be honest with you, the real star of that show, and I'm not talking about in terms of bringing the drama, but I'm talking in terms of occultism and spirituality, the real star of that show was Claudia Blaisdel. The actress, her name is Pamela Bellwood, but her character of Claudia, she was like the sacrifice of that show. Her character was the sacrifice. Because everywhere she turned, it was always a struggle. It was always a struggle for Claudia. Always. And then, to add insult to injury, her first husband, Matthew Blaisdel, he wasn't even in love with Claudia. He was really in love with Crystal Carrington. Because when he came back in later seasons, when we find out that Matthew Blaisdel was not even dead, that motherfucker told Crystal, I came back for you. He didn't even ask about Claudia. He didn't even ask, they didn't even mention the fact that Claudia was dead. They didn't even mention it. To add insult to injury and more disrespect, that's like spitting on her name. You know how many people have gone through that? Do you know how that type of energy has shaped the world that we live in? That is why Dynasty was such a revolutionary show. And when I say revolutionary, I mean in terms of, maybe revolutionary is scratch that. That's not a good term. That's not a good way to describe it. That's why Dynasty was such a infamous show. And that's why it was such a famous show, because of this type of shit. You feel what I'm saying? Dynasty shaped the world. That show helped to shape the world that we live in right now. Because there's so many people that have been Claudia Blaisdel, especially a lot of women, who've sacrificed. Taking it a step further, even in the world of politics and in the world of corporate America. Dynasty showed you how corrupt these world governments were going to become in the future. Because after Dynasty went off the air, they did Dynasty the reunion for one more hurrah, and everyone came back. You know, not everyone. Diane Carroll didn't come back. I don't know why, but she didn't come back. But everyone came back for one last Dynasty, and we find out what happened to the Carringtons and the Colbys after the show ended. And come to find out, Blake was being set up by his own son. And there was this consortium that was ran by shadow governments that was, how was it going? How did it go? This consortium was being ran by shadow governments. And what they were doing was they were taking over American-owned governments and selling out to foreign entities to undermine basically the American way of life, which is what we see going on now with the invasion of the fucking Asians and Chinese. We see it now, how the United States government has sold out to so many different people on so many different levels. Dynasty predicted that. Dynasty showed that. It was showing you what the future of the world was going to be. And how they had to get Claudia Blaisdel's out of the world. They had to get Claudia Blaisdel's out of the way, because people like Claudia Blaisdel, they had intuition. And they could see what was going on. Because Claudia would line all them bitches up. Claudia was a fighter as well, but at some point, she felt defeated. At some point, everyone has a limit. She was a fighter. She would line all them bitches up and get them together. She would. She would line Alexis up. She would get Sammy Joe ass in line. Because Sammy Joe was a bitch too. She would line up some of those men on that show and put them in their place when they got out of pocket. So they had to get her out of the way. And that's symbolic of how this world and the people in this world, they try to get people like that out of the way. Your more average, common person. Because your more average, common person is more grounded within the root. And when you're at the root, you can see everything. See, Claudia knew all of the skeletons that were in the closet of the Carringtons. She knew. She knew what was going on. She knew all of the skeletons and where all the bodies were buried symbolically. Not literal bodies, but symbolically. She knew about that. So people like that, they have to get you out of the way, or they silence you some kind of way. And that's what they did to Claudia Blaisdel. Now, she accidentally killed herself, per se. But her death and her blood is really on the hands of the Carringtons and the Colbys. Mainly the Carringtons. Her blood is on their hands. They drove her to that point. They drove her to that isolation point. That is why you have to know who you are, even in the worst times. That is why you have to know what your spirit is. You have to know what your spirit is saying to you. You have to work with your spirit and your spirituality, no matter what. I don't give a fuck if a motherfucker got 10 fucking houses. A motherfucker can have 10 houses and you could be living in a motherfucking apartment. It don't fucking matter. You got to know who your spirit is, because your spirit is that which empowers you. A house don't empower you. Houses and money and all that only helps you in the material financial world. But when it comes to spirit, that is where you really want to be empowered. Because heaven and earth are going to pass away, but it's the spirit, it's the word that's going to live forever. So that is why I don't give a fuck about motherfuckers turning on me in my family or anywhere else. And nothing's going on or anything like that. I'm just saying in general. I don't give a fuck about who likes me and who don't. That is why I really don't like this climate. For example, Joe Biden invited the LGBT community to the White House lawn today or yesterday. Okay? But see, here's the thing. There are two classes of LGBT people. There are those like myself who are more spiritual in nature. And then there are those who are more carnal in nature. Meaning they follow the leader. They're looking for validation from the government. Looking for rights is one thing, but they're looking for validation and acceptance from everyone else in the government. I don't give a fuck about your acceptance. Now, I'm not talking to the people that respect me and have no issue with me, but I don't give a fuck about your acceptance. That's why a lot of people don't like me, around here, because I won't let them get close to me. And I don't fit the archetype for most gay black men because I don't give a fuck about your acceptance. I accept me. Even if my mother didn't accept me, I wouldn't give a fuck because I accept me. Just like those conscious niggas, them too. I don't give a fuck about them accepting me because I accept me. So when I look at that whole fiasco of Joe Biden and those so-called LGBT people that were there at the White House, those particular LGBT people, they're not fighting for rights for people like me. Because people like me understand there's a time for this and there's a time for that. And people like me, we live in our own world and reality, and we're not trying to invite anyone in. I don't give a fuck about people not accepting me. I'm not here to be accepted. That's not why I'm here. I used to care, but not anymore. I'm not here to be accepted. So when I look at that whole fiasco with the current state of the LGBT community, those people are not authentic LGBT people. They are more like Stephen Carrington's. The character of Stephen Carrington created the current climate of the LGBT community as we see it today. Stephen was conflicted. He was confused. And I don't give a fuck who gets offended. And he wasn't true to himself. Because he was looking for acceptance from everyone. And that is what we see going on now. And then on top of that, and taking the storyline stuff out of it, Dynasty had a lot of scandals. A lot of scandals. There were a lot of men, there were several men on the cast of Dynasty who were gay and they had HIV. One of them was Rock Hudson. The other one, I don't know if he was gay, but he did have HIV according to his daughter, and that was the guy that played Dex, Michael Nader. He also played Dimitri on All My Children. This was the energy of Dynasty behind the scenes. This is what was going on. This is what was being pushed out into the universe. And this was 30, 40 some odd years ago. And we wonder why the world is in the state that it's in now. Because a lot of stuff that goes on in Hollywood, it ends up trickling down into the real world. And as one of my spiritual co-workers brilliantly says, art imitates life and life imitates art. Art imitates life and life imitates art. So I don't fall in the same category as some of these other gay people. Because see, I walk in my own reality. I walk in the beat of my own frequency. And I've always been like that, and that's why a lot of people don't like me. That's why a lot of them conscious niggas over there did not like me. That's why they had to get rid of me. Because I was too real. And I did not fall in line with the stereotypical bullshit that goes along with being a gay black man. No, I'm not going to be your entertainment. I'm not your motherfucking entertainment. You don't wind up no motherfucking, you don't wind me up and think I'm going to perform for you. I have my own mind. I don't have to go to Club Sashaying and Shantayan to prove any point to anybody. Gay people come in all shapes, sizes, colors. We all have our own different personalities. So I just wanted to point that out too. I think that whole thing going on now with the LGBT community, I think that it does a disservice to your average LGBT person, because most of us just want to live our lives and we want to be left alone. We don't want to be around your children. We don't want to influence your children. We don't want to dress in drag in front of your children. Most of us just want to be left the fuck alone. I know I do. I do. And the gay people that understand what I'm saying, they get it. The ones that don't, they just fucking don't. The people that Biden is supporting and backing up, those people have nothing to do with me. He's not backing me up and supporting me because I'm not part of that frequency. And there are others who are not part of that frequency. That is an agenda-based frequency. So when I hear people on The View talking about all the LGBTQI communities being attacked, ain't nobody attacking me. I get along with straight people more than I do, or heterosexual people more than I do really other gay people. Truthfully, it's other gay people that give me more problems than heterosexual people, and I'm talking about gay men, not gay women particularly. Some of them too, though, but not particularly. I get along better, really and truthfully, with heterosexual people. Most of my friends are heterosexual people. I find that interesting, but that's by design. And it's by numbers. Because a large percentage, and see, people don't want to talk about this, a large percentage of my generation of gay men, they died out due to AIDS. A lot of my, several of my friends that I grew up with have died from AIDS. But we don't want to talk about that, do we? We don't want to talk about all of the gay men, black and white, who have died from AIDS and other illnesses, and some of which was not done through sexual contact. We don't want to talk about the chemical and biological warfare that's going on in the world. We don't want to talk about how American Horror Story season 11, they were telling you how the so-called shadow government was targeting gay people in New York in the 1970s and the 1980s. Even though that was an awful season, they could have told that story a little bit better. They could have told that story a little bit better. But they didn't. So no, when I hear people on The View talking about, oh, the LGBT community is under attack and all that stuff, I'm not under attack from anyone. I don't feel like I'm a victim. I don't feel like I'm a victim of anything. When I feel like I'm a victim, then I'll speak on it. But see, the reason I'm no longer a victim and I'm now a victor is because I know who I am. And that bothers people. That makes people uncomfortable when you can speak with this confidence. I know who I am. So I don't have to follow the LGBT community. I don't have to follow this community. I don't have to follow that community. I can have compassion because we may have some of the same struggles. I get that and I have that. But I don't have to follow anything or anyone. The only thing that I follow is my spirit and my God. And I'm talking about the God that resides within me. That ain't never steered me wrong. I have plenty of food. I have enough of what I need. I have my health. I have friends and people that love me. What more can you ask for? What more can you ask for? Anyone that doesn't love me, then they just don't. But I will not be Claudia Blaisdel. I have been. But see, spirit saved me. Spirit saved me. Ancestors helped me. Spirit helped me. That is why it's very important to connect with your spirit. Not connect with none of these clowns online who claim that they're, and I'm talking about some of these men who claim that they're this and they're that, and I'm the occultist, and I'm this and I'm that. No, you need to connect with your spirit. Because most of those motherfucking niggas, they're not connected to fucking spirit. Especially a lot of these black men. Yeah, I said it. Not all. Of course. The only thing them motherfuckers are connected to is taking your fucking money and living better than you. But even that is temporary. Because they're not really doing any real spiritual work. And the people that are really doing spiritual work are the ones that they try to throw away and discard. Just like the Carringtons did to Claudia Blaisdel. Because Claudia was doing real spiritual work. She was always self-examining herself. She was always questioning herself, self-doubting herself. Claudia was the sacrifice because Claudia was the real motherfucking shit. Claudia was the real shit. And when I say the shit, I mean that in a good way. So of course they had to push her to the side. And the actress that played her, Pamela Bellwood, in actuality, I think she would have been a better, she probably would have been a better Crystal than Linda Evans. Linda Evans should have played Claudia. Because I've never really been a Linda Evans fan like that. But Linda Evans should have been Claudia, and Claudia should have been, I'm sorry, Linda Evans should have been played Claudia, and Claudia should have been Crystal. And even better yet, Diane Carroll had more chemistry with John Forsythe as a wife versus playing his sister. There was more chemistry between him and Dominique Devereaux, Diane Carroll's character, than him and Linda Evans, if you ask me. And that's just my personal opinion. You know? But anyway, I just wanted to come through and drop that video. Don't let them Claudia Blaisdel you. Don't let them Claudia Blaisdel you. Know your spirit and know yourself. Nobody can know your spirit better than you. I don't care what they say. Let me tell you, people have said horrible things about me. People have tried to do horrible things to me as far as throwing shit at me. You know, I'm talking about people in my family, you know. But guess what? I'm still young looking. I'll be 44 in August. And people, sometimes people still think I'm in my early 30s. Some people even think I'm in my 20s. I know you can't see me on camera, but that's not important. Some people even think I'm still in my 20s. And people just wonder, how does he do it? I know what they think. After everything he's been through, after all of the disappointments and all of the heartache and betrayal, you know, here's a better one. How did he get through that dark period when he lost his friend Christopher Barry, whose birthday is coming up? How did he get through that dark period? You know how I got through all of those things? My spirit. My spirit. And with the help of a few friends, you know. But my spirit got me through those things. That is how I can sit here or stand here and be a testament and say, no matter what has happened to me, no matter how many times they tried to Claudia Blaisdel me, it just never works. It just never works. It never works. And this is not a bragging expedition. This is just a learning expedition. This is a lesson expedition to show people that you need to rely on spirit. And spirit will send genuine people to you. They may not be in your life for a long time. You may get what you need from those people. And once you see who they really are, then you move on. But you get what you need, but then you move on. I've gotten what I needed. You feel what I'm saying? So don't let them Claudia Blaisdel you. Okay? You don't let them Claudia Blaisdel you. You come back like Alexis Carrington, Colby Dexter. Shit. You come back and you own the whole fucking company and the whole fucking city. That's what Alexis did. She said, fuck that. Y'all not gonna Claudia Blaisdel me. She came back and she did what she had to do because Blake wasn't shit. Blake really wasn't shit. He banished her from her family and her children all because she had an affair. And like I said, the reason that I'm talking about this is because it's symbolic of what people go through all the time. You don't have to be rich to go through these things, you know? But anyway, don't let them Claudia Blaisdel you. That's all I had to say. Thank you.